Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Proline TV on YouTube. I'm Jim Feist. This is Andy Isco. We're here for the NBA. We're going to talk a little bit of NBA. We're going to talk about what happened over the weekend, and we're going to look at the games for the next couple of days. Andy, are you with me?
I am, Andy? And if I'm looking at my schedule, yes, I am. Can you hear me all right now?
I hear you. Yeah,
okay.
As you can tell, folks, we're having a little bit of issues with technology, but it's a very windy day in Las Vegas, and maybe that's possibly the reason. I think we've had gusts up to 60 miles an hour this morning already. Yes. At my house.
Monday morning gremlins. And as I look at my schedule, we have one elimination game coming up in the 4 upcoming NBA games, and it's one of the more surprising elimination games.
Absolutely. Last week when we spoke, we had 4 road favorites, and that's really unusual in the playoffs that you have 4 teams that are favored. Only one of them covered. That was Boston. The other games, however, when Denver did lose, but they covered. The Warriors did lose at home, and they covered. So the road teams did okay, straight up, but only one covered, and that was, like I said, Boston. Tonight we have in New York City, we got Boston again.
Well, by the way, on Sunday night, which I guess we couldn't really talk about on Friday because Friday's game hadn't been played yet, but you again had Oklahoma City as a road favorite at Denver, and they covered or didn't cover depending upon when you got it. And then obviously Cleveland, which was a favorite, ended up as a no-show and did not cover Sunday night. So when you talked about the 3 out of 4 road favorites, it's the 4 games we were able to talk about on Friday, which were the 2 Friday and 2 Saturday games.
Yeah, if you'd have played all the home dogs and did some shopping, you'd have made some good money. How the hell do you explain a team down 2-1, fully staffed, all the players are back, and the Cavaliers didn't show up at Indy yesterday? How do you explain that?
Well, I had Indiana yesterday. First of all, let's go back to Friday night. We talked about it. We felt Cleveland's season was on the line. They had everybody healthy Friday night, and they ended up winning, 126-104, a very clear and convincing win for the Cavs, and you thought maybe they're back in the series. I actually expected them to win on Sunday, but I still thought Indiana's a strong enough team. They know they can beat Cleveland at home and on the road as they have in the regular season. And so I played Indiana to cover the game. Didn't think they were going to win, which is why I didn't play it on the money line. And then just what happened in that first part of that game, and they ended up having a comfortable lead throughout 30. I think they had 41 at the half, Cleveland leading Indiana, if I recall correctly. That was very, very surprising that Cleveland was a no-show. As I think we said before we went on the air, I would have expected that to perhaps have been Cleveland if they had lost Friday night and now they were down 3-0 and basically had no chance of winning. Because I would have thought that they would have been a bit energized on Sunday after making it 2-1, but that Indiana was still good enough to be competitive as they were. Just never expected what we saw Sunday night. And I find it very, very hard. I see the line on Tuesday has Cleveland favored 7.5, unless Indiana decides, you know what, we want to clinch it at home in Game 6. It's very hard to imagine laying that point with Cleveland in a game that they could easily lose straight up again.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I'm trying to get the share screen up here, and eventually I'll figure it out.
There we go.
There it is. Okay. Well, they're down. Cavs are now down 3-1. They're going back home. I'm going to just, not to be too controversial, but I know that when you're controversial, people seem to want to listen and view more.
They grabbed the next beer when we're starting to be controversial. They're going to be there for a while.
Right. The Cavs had the 3 players out in Game 2. And my contention was, how hurt are they that they can not even show up and go on the game and give the team a little bit of a rest here or there, play 2-3 minutes, and then they all turn around and play in Game 3. So if they could play in Game 3, isn't it possible that they could have stretched it out and put themselves on the floor in Game 2? And that's what pissed me off so much. Then there's something going on. I mean, now they show up in Game 4, or actually they don't show up in game 4. I mean, they had 39 points in the first half, down 41 points at halftime. I mean, come on, give me a break. I mean, these guys are, I don't know what the hell it is. Is it the 3-point? Is it the volatility of the 3-point shot has taken away the consistency that we look for in the game? Is that what we're looking at here? Now, granted, during the regular season, they're not always playing playoff caliber teams. So therefore, they're not playing against the best defenses or the best offenses or the best coached or even the best players overall. I mean, there's good players on every team, granted, but the better teams will have more good players. Is their percentage of hitting threes? I guess I'm answering my own question. The percentage of hitting threes against a bad team is going to be better because they're not playing that the defense on the outside against the three as well as the good teams will. And the volatility is incredible. I mean, when you look at even the Denver game, they were up by 7 late in that game yesterday. And they went, then all of a sudden, over in a couple minutes, and this was in the last few minutes of the game, they're now down 7. So it's a 14-point run by OKC, and OKC ended up winning the game, not covering, but ended up winning the game. So it's the fatigue issue. They don't play that many games where they're having to play 40 minutes because they take the load management. So the fatigue issue, like when I used to train for marathons, I used to run 3 days a week, 16, 18 miles a day, 3 days a week. And then I'd do shorter runs, 5, 6 miles. On other days, I'd take 1 day off. And I did a lot of marathon running in my life. If you don't train up to what you are going to have to do when the chips are down, maybe fatigue enters into it more.
Yeah, I think so. In fact, I want to go back to what you were talking about with the Cavs sitting out the guys. I think it was in game 2, and they could have played a few more minutes. If you look at what they did in game 3, when they came back on Friday and won, Mobley ended up playing 35 minutes. Garland played 24 minutes, and Hunter played 20 minutes. So they were able to play a lot of minutes just 2 days after they sat out. You have to believe that had they not sat out, maybe they don't play as many minutes in game 3 that they won, but maybe they played enough minutes in game 2 that they might have won that game. So to your point, you have to wonder, and Cleveland has to wonder what happened in game 3. Game 4 was really the shock.
I don't know, I'm not in the locker room. I don't know what the chemistry is between all the players, and there's always players that like each other and others don't, and stuff like that. And then there's the coaching dynamic, and how is he a friend or is he a coach? And it's that. So you don't know. I mean, they had a great season, awesome season, great players, no question. They're very good. They might actually be the best team, possibly, but they're not showing it. And now they're really got their back to the wall. I mean, is it possible? Yes, they could win the next 3. I mean, they are very good, but the Pacers are good too. I mean, they're not dog meat. I mean, they're really good. They could won this series even if Cleveland had been healthy 100%. So, but I don't know. There's something wrong with that whole picture to me. It bothers me.
Yeah,
but anyway, going forward,
I was going to mention the other point that you made about the 3-pointers and shooting well against the weaker teams. It's because, and I think you sort of alluded to it, the weaker teams are generally weak because they don't play defense. They don't have any real strong defensive presence, and so it makes it easier. And that's why I would like to see a breakdown somewhere, and I'm sure somebody's got it somewhere, of 3-point shooting percentages, let's say, against winning teams, against, let's say, the 5 top defensive teams in the league versus the rest of the league. And that might help us from a wagering standpoint as far as being able to isolate those situations, because those are, you talk about deep dive stats. Those are deep dive stats that most people, I would say, don't keep. But that, I think, would be something that, and I would think that perhaps a lot of the people who, a lot of the large wagering syndicates who probably spread a lot of the information gathering around, someone's job is it to track a lot of quality teams.
Well, there's a couple sites that do something or similar things to that in college basketball. But in college basketball, there's 300 teams. We're only talking about 30
Yeah.
some teams here in the NBA. But when you talk about Ken Palm and Tarvik and all them, I think they're doing things like that against higher power rating teams versus lower power rating teams. But in the NBA, I don't see that. I don't see those stats. But you're right.
No.
That would be a big help. But the problem with the NBA, and I'm not trying to be critical of the NBA. I love the product in the playoffs. I don't like the performance of the teams because the inconsistency. And I'm going to lay that mostly on A, the 3-point shot, and B, coaching not demanding the players do more than shoot 3-point shots and run plays. I mean, you can have two game plans. You can have two game plans. These are smart, talented, the most talented athletes maybe in the world. These people can play different styles of ball. When you're super dependent on one style of ball and it doesn't work, what do? Stand there and scratch your ass and not know what to do next? And that's kind of what you see from Boston. If the threes are going in, they're unbelievable. You can't beat them. But when they're not, they don't look good. And so I think the product is diminished for the most part because of the lax management from the top. And when they have that tournament in the middle of the season where they are guaranteeing so much money for what do you call that, Andy?
I'm not sure what they call it, but it's actually early in the season. It runs from like late November to early December, so it's before everybody really has a chance to gain their rhythm, which is okay. That's fine. I just before you continue, I just wanted to mention that you're talking about the game plans. I've always felt that teams should have two game plans, whatever let's talk about the sports, football and basketball. One game plan for the first half, and then one game plan for the second half, because once you've played the first half, your opponent knows what you're going to be, what's working and not working, and going to expect you to continue to do it in the second half. And obviously, the team that is succeeding in the first half usually continues to do it. But if you come out with a totally different game plan, you are going against what your opponent has been planning for as far as adjustments go for the second half. So I think two different game plans that can be used, I think, would help the game overall, certainly from an offensive standpoint.
You have a little bit of that. When you look at the Denver Nuggets, man-to-man defense some of the time, but they're playing a lot of zone right now. And when you look at the performance of Jokic, the Joker, who arguably is one of the top, if the top, or one of the top 5 best players in all of basketball. He's been most valuable player a couple times and probably should have been even more, but for politics. They look fatigued to me. And the fact that they're gone to the zone is taking some of the pressure off of that, because it's easier to play a zone than it is to chase everybody around man to man and do all the switching. So that may be a reason that they have switched to the zone so much. Now, that is a second game plan on defense. On offense, they're not totally dependent on the 3-point shot, as is, say, Cleveland for the most part, and Boston. So they're probably the two most dependent on the 3-point shots that I can visually see.
Well, I think they were 1 and 2 in the league as far as number of attempts per game. I think we did that. I think we may have done that on the ATS podcast last week.
I think you're right.
One was 47 per game. I think Boston, and I think Cleveland was 42 per game, and then there was a drop off.
So tonight we've got Boston 6.5, and that's pretty stable. I mean, I don't see any variation to that number at all. And let me check here what the total looks like. Try to get that up here on the screen.
Total is about 208.5, and that's pretty steady. I think it opens some places 208. I show one open at 209, but I'm basically showing 208 at 208.5, pretty much across the board. I do see a couple of 6.5s on Boston, and it's sort of evenly split between 6 and 6.5s.
I see no sixes right now. I see all 6.5, and I'm seeing
I'm
six and a
showing
half
Westgate
minus.
at 6.
But that's local stuff. Okay, right. I'm looking at a lot
Yeah,
of
oh yeah,
offshore.
local, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm
Far
looking at a
away
lot
and
of
outside
offshores,
Nevada,
man.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's all 6.5.
you're going to get a lot of dog players here in Vegas because you got a lot of sharp players, and they're going to take the dog in a situation where New York lost the last game. I'd see a couple of 208s, but mostly two. No, I mean 90% of the lines 208.5, and DraftKings
Yeah,
has 208. So now I don't know about injuries. I do see that Cat Towns. That's Carl Anthony Towns. They call him
yeah.
Cat. Kat. He might be a little banged up, but I don't see any definitive that he's not in there. Do you?
I don't. Yeah, I don't see him on the injury report. I show very
Okay.
little as far as the injury report for that
I
game.
mean, this is in New York has not really played on even keel with these. I mean, I know they got 2 victories, but the way they've been down by 20 or more points in every game. And
That's the concern if you want to back New York tonight is the fact that in all 3 games they have been down by significant margins. In the first 2, they were able to come back and eke out wins up in Boston. In Game 3, Boston was able to maintain a big lead and ended up winning that game by what was it the other night? 115-93.
yeah,
So
yeah, and
what's
it
changed?
was actually worse than that. They could have won by
Yeah.
more. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit reluctant in wanting to take the Knicks, even though the situation screams to do so, because the way that they've won their first 2 games were I'm not going to say flukes to a certain extent, but yeah, they really were, because when you come back from double digit fourth quarter or certainly third quarter deficits, you're not supposed to win those games. You're maybe supposed to be able to be competitive. For them to come back and win and to do it twice in a row, that just tells me. And again, when we've talked about it before, the domination that Boston has had over the Knicks in the last 2+ seasons, winning all those games in a row, 7, 8, 9 in a row, whatever it was, makes you conclude that there's just a huge talent gap between these 2 teams. Even though maybe the Knicks are improving a little bit and closing that gap, it still makes it hard. Maybe if you like the Knicks tonight, maybe you play them in the first half.
I'd say if you like the Knicks tonight, you should probably bet Brunson over the total, over his point total.
Yeah,
Because if they're going to stay competitive, it's going to be because of him or because they can slow down Boston's 3-point shooting. They're the only 2 ways they can stay in the game. And it's possible they could do either
yeah,
or both. I mean, they're capable of that.
yeah.
Because we know if Boston goes cold from 3, they're pretty much done. They're not going to cover spreads. They might win, but they're not going to be covering spreads, and there won't be a lot of points. This is a big game. New York does lead 2-1 in this series. The road team has won every game straight up. We got Minnesota at Golden State. And Golden State had a pretty good game the other night from a couple players. They really produced. However, they did not win, and they did cover. Minnesota did not cover that spread. This game, and this is interesting, Andy, this game opened 6.5 and it's down to 5. 90% of the time it's 5.5 or not, or 5. The 6s and the 6.5s are gone.
Yeah, I want to make a case for Golden State because again, they may not be able to win the game. They showed that they could be competitive in the last game, but again, everyone expected Minnesota to win. They were favored and they ended up winning. I'm showing like I usually use it for historic purposes for my database, even though well, it started back in the days before offshore betting. But I've used the Westgate, and they actually closed the game at 5 after opening at 4.5. And I know a lot of other places went up to. I'm sorry, it opened 5 and closed 5. Other places were 5.5, so you did get the cover with Golden State. I could see the same situation tonight because Golden State realizes that if they win tonight, straight up, they end up now making it a best-of-3 series with 2 of the games in Minnesota. If they're down 3-1, once again, they're going to have a tough time coming back. Although 3-1 deficits have been overcome multiple times in the NBA, unlike 3-0 deficit. So I'm inclined to look to play Golden State. I understand the line move. Curry is out. They had a couple. They basically had 2 3/4 games without Curry after he got injured in game one. They managed to win one of those games, I think. I'm sorry, the first game they lost, I think it was.
No, I think
they won the first. They won the first game.
Yeah, they won the first game because I had Minnesota in that game and I lost that bet.
And that's right. That's the one they won 99-88. But they were not competitive in game two, and in game three they were more competitive, losing by 5 and playing another full game without at home without Curry. So I give them a chance to stay close in this game. I don't know, though. Normally I would like to in normal situations. Of course, in normal situations they would not be a 5.5 point underdog at home to anybody in the league. Normally in such a situation, I would like to sprinkle part of it on the money line. I just can't do that tonight, but I can certainly make a case for Golden State. And the time where I might end up wanting to get in Golden State is if Minnesota gets off to an early lead and looks as though they're going to be much the better team. We've seen Golden State be able, for the most part, to make runs.
I'd be honest, the game opened 6.5, and I grabbed the 6.5 on Golden State immediately. Kuminga had a big game. Jimmy Butler had a big game. They didn't get much out of I can't say his name right. Puzinski or something. He's a young guy that plays he plays hard, a lot of intensity, a lot of passion, but he didn't shoot very well. They need more out of him to make up for. You really don't make up for Steph Curry. I mean, he's an aberration the way he can play and hit shots. But I think Golden State's the right side. It's just a matter of whether you can shop for numbers. If you see 5.5, I'd buy it to 6 because I think 6 is a big number. If you get 5.5, I'd buy it to 6. And I see some 5.5s minus 0.9, so it's not terrible. It wouldn't be a terrible price, but that's what I would go with. I don't know how we're going to talk the Tuesday game, Indiana at Cleveland. I don't even know how the hell you explain what Cleveland has done in this series. So granted, we talked about it a little bit. The injuries in game 2, and then they came back. All 3 guys come back in game 3. And you mentioned the minutes. Garland only played 25 in game 3, 25 minutes in game 3, but he had 4 fouls, so he had to sit a lot. Then he would have played a lot more than that. So here's the guys that are playing 30, 35 minutes in game 3 when they didn't play any minutes in game 2. There's something that there's a rat, and my grandfather used to say there's a rat in a woodpile. Something's wrong there. I mean, you put your ass on the line for 82 games, and then you decide to sit out in game 2. There's something wrong, and I'm not sure if this is a chemistry issue, something going on, but what they did in game 4 was inexcusable. To be down 41 points at halftime.
And impossible to explain.
I can't explain it.
After coming off of almost a 22-point win in game 3 when they had the 3 guys back and they played decent minutes and they said, okay, look, this is the Cleveland team that you've seen all year. And then to come back, when I see a final score yesterday in that game of 129-109, I say, without knowing what happened, the Cavs proved what they did in game 3 is what they could do in game 4. And now their series is tied 2-2. But it wasn't that way at all. It was the Indiana team that ended up winning in the blowout. That makes this game very hard to handicap, because are you willing to lay 7.5 with Cleveland?
And there's a lot of 8s. This is Cleveland's game to win. They are healthy. They are back home where they've lost the first 2 games. This should be a Cleveland. This should actually be a Cleveland blowout. However, how the hell? I don't know how to get around what they did in game 3. I don't know how to bet this game. I really absolutely don't know what's going on.
Game 3, and it was interesting in game 3, as I mentioned, because I thought I expected Cleveland to win, but I took the points with the Pacers because they're a good team and they've shown it. So to see what happened with Cleveland, Cleveland had an opportunity. If they could have won that game, they were going to be 2-2 in the series. Now, even if they lost a close game, it would still make tonight's game, as it is, an elimination game for them. So they had every reason to win, or certainly put forth a competitive effort in Game 4 to perhaps draw to 2-2, or at least have the confidence that, okay, we're going home, we've got things better. Yeah, we had lost a tough Game 4, but now we've shown what we can do, and we're back at full strength in these last two games, Game 3 and 4. That's what makes this game very difficult to play. All things being equal, if this were a 2-2 series and Cleveland had won Game 4, I'd say that line with Indiana is way too generous.
Oh,
but you're
totally.
right. You would
Absolutely
think
totally.
that this is the effort for Cleveland, but can they do it? Because they're going up against a team again that made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and Indiana knows that if they win tonight, they're back playing in the Eastern Conference Finals. And meanwhile, Boston still has to take care of business against New York. If they make it 3-1 tonight, if Boston wins tonight, that series becomes 2-2, meaning that series goes at least 2 more games. Indiana, by winning tonight, gets a lot of rest for whoever they face between Boston and the Knicks. So they have the incentive to end it. But could it be a situation where Cleveland gets out to a 20-point lead and Indiana says, well, we've got this game under our belts. Let's rest a little bit in the second half. We'll get them back at home.
What I would probably do here is, if you have a couple teams you like, a money line parlay, including Cleveland, would be one. That's probably the direction. If you see another team or two that you like, on either with the points, a dog, or whatever you like, and you put, it's a big price to lay when you're having to lay 7.5 or 8. So I wouldn't do that, but I would take a money line side with Cleveland and a parlay with something else that you absolutely
maybe you
like.
do it with Boston tonight, who's down 2-1 and laying 5.5, 6, whatever it is, 5.5, I think it said, and maybe tomorrow with Oklahoma City.
Now,
in what's now a 2-2 series.
That is a 2-2 series.
They now have the home court advantage back. OKC does.
Now, the situation with Denver and Oklahoma City is interesting. You can't say that. I mean, when you look at, other than the Joker, Denver has a lot of good players. They have some guys that are stepping up. Parker's a little bit hurt with the shoulder, but you got Gordon, who's playing out of his mind. You got Murray, who's playing fantastic. You got Westbrook, who's playing like I haven't seen him play in years, and he always comes with 110 or 125% energy. He is definitely a dynamo in that respect. But now he actually hits some shots every once in a while. Yeah, he'll throw up an air ball too, but he is actually hitting some shots. He plays good defense.
The pressure doesn't get to him either.
Nothing gets to him. So this is a big game. I mean, you're taking 10.5 points. With Denver, and I can't lay 10.5 points with Oklahoma City.
No, that's why I was saying Oklahoma City might be the third team in the money line parlay again with Cleveland and Boston tonight. So you'd have one leg in tonight, then you'd have 2 tomorrow. Yeah, I would find it hard to lay the points with Oklahoma City because, much like with Indiana and Cleveland, Indiana was in the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and they've got the experience to go up against a team that is better than them and compete. Plus, you're getting 7.5 or 7 with Indiana tomorrow night. Same thing with Oklahoma City and Denver. Denver's won an NBA title recently. They know they can go up against the better teams, and Oklahoma City has been the better team all year, and Denver's already shown it in this series to be able to take a 2-1. What was it? Well, they had a 2-1 lead, and now it's 2-2. So that is a big number, given the quality of players that Denver has. And
the one thing is, you don't have to
win in a situation before.
When you play a money line parlay, you could play a money line side with Cleveland, but you don't have to play money line on all the teams. You could take, for example, 10.5 with Denver and Cleveland on the money line, and the Knicks on the money line, and Golden State on the money line, all taking dogs. You don't have to lay the money line or have the money line involved in all the games. You can just do it with one game. And that's what I would consider. I would consider the dogs being live and Cleveland being live, but not laying the points. So that's kind of the way I look at it.
No, I agree with that. And the other thing is, by the way, that if, let's say, you hit the first few legs of the parlay, whether you use money line or points with some of the, like Boston, let's say you do money line, let's say you Golden State plus the points, let's say you do Cleveland money line, and you get those 3 in, and let's say you've got them tied to Denver plus the points in the late game Tuesday, you can do some in-game hedging to protect the 3 legs that you've already won if you wanted to, and possibly get an opportunity to win all 4.
Okay, Andy, I think that covers us for the basketball jam.
Yep.
Proline TV on YouTube. You can also go to prolinetv.com, and it'll get you there as well. Andy, in closing, I think that basically what we're saying is these should be some very competitive games. We're looking at desperation. Just because a team needs to win doesn't mean they will win. That's not a good handicapping tool.
If a team needs to win, it means it didn't win when they had the opportunities to not be in a
exactly.
need to win situation.
There's something deficient about them to begin with that they got themselves in this situation.
And Cleveland is the most confusing one of the 4, because Cleveland, after making it 2-1 and did so impressively in Game 3, now makes tonight not a need to win, it's a must win for Cleveland.
Absolutely. That's actually Tuesday.
Tomorrow night.
And that's our basketball jam for today. Andy, thank you. We are on YouTube, Proline TV. Make sure you subscribe, like, hit the bell. Make sure the bell rings when we post something. We have great content on that site each and every day. It's all free. And we've gave you a lot of good information in this podcast, a lot of free plays that you can decide what to do with. Andy, we'll be back in a few minutes. We're going to do something for baseball, but we'll check this out. I'm going to make sure I hit the right buttons to close up, because the other day I screwed up.
So wish good luck to everybody.
Thank you, Andy. Thanks, everyone.